There, that's the bigger question. All right. We are live here on Facebook, Ohio Investment Group page again. We try to do this every Wednesday, and we discuss the topic that we think investors want to hear. And this week, what I've got is we're gonna dive into the rearview mirror. Looking back is the only way that we can look at the present and try to decide, is now a good time to invest? Because we've had a lot of changes in the market. We've got all this inflation, we got higher interest rates, we got this, we got all kinds of reasons why we shouldn't invest. What I've seen is the principle of buy low, sell high always falls on deaf ears. So, and what I mean by that is, so in a market where everything is up, nobody calls their investment guy and says, "Hey, I want to sell," because they always think it's just going to keep going up. But then when the market crashes and everything is falling apart, everybody calls their investment guy and says, "Hey, I want to sell." Is that really the way we should be doing things? No. We should probably be buying more in those down markets so that when it rises, we have more opportunity. But what we're coming out of is an environment where we had really, really low interest rates and we were able to buy for a lot of cash flow. That was the key word. Everybody wanted cash flow. But let's take a look and go way back in our time machine, like that movie Hot Tub Time Machine or whatever, and jump in and let's go way, way back, like to the dinosaur age. Let's go back to the 1980s. The only person alive on the call probably was Frank Ruma. So Cheech, tell us bring us back to the 1980s, for what you remember of it.
I was just in grade school in the 80s. Now,
Yeah.
when I got into this business, it was March of 87, and rates were around 12%.
12%.
People, believe it or not, were still buying homes.
Okay.
And we actually, as a family, had bought several investment properties during that time, which a couple of them are still being held at this point.
Wow.
Okay. So it's not a matter of when you buy. This is my overall take on real estate. It's not a matter of when you buy an investment, because if you hold it long enough, you'll make money. So it's a matter of when you choose to sell it.
That's it as a whole. I mean, if you're
We're
buying,
done now. You can stop recording.
I know the whole thing that could lasted 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and we are done. When you talk about buying stocks or you're dealing with a financial advisor, a lot of times you'll watch that portfolio and you'll say, okay, I had $100,000 in my portfolio at the start of 2022. And now here I am, and I've only got 85,000. So you say I lost $15,000 in my investments. My question though is, did you? No, you didn't. You didn't sell it. You don't lose it until you sell it. The opportunity is still there if they hold it longer, which all investment guys are saying is hold long, but they don't necessarily tell you when to sell. And that really is dictated by life events, of what's happening. If you need to retire and it's a down market, well, you got to sell, and yeah, you might lose some money. But if you sell in an up market, you're going to gain money. But if you hold it long enough, the principle is you're going to make some money regardless of the ups and downs in the market. That's really what it comes to. And the same thing applies to investment real estate. So your family back in the 1980s, they bought a property that is still held today that was an investment. Let's go back in that time machine again and describe that property to me of what it is, the value now.
The first one bought was a two-family in Lakewood for $96,000. A nice two-family. Okay. For $96,000. Tell me, can you get a nice two-family in Lakewood for $96,000 right now, guys?
No. Absolutely not.
What kind of price range would a nice two-family ballpark be in Lakewood right now?
225, 250.
250 and up. 250 and up.
Yeah. He said nice, because I'm thinking if I go back to 1987 and I'm buying a duplex that's $97,000 back then, it was a pretty nice duplex back then. So, same thing would compare to now. You're probably looking at $300,000-$400,000 duplex in today's market versus what he was able to do.
We just ran numbers on one of them. Now it wasn't that $96,000 one. It was another one that was bought for a little bit more. I think it was bought for $1.25, all brick. Um, and we just ran numbers on that now. We were coming up with around 400,000.
So my big question is, regardless of what the price was, 97,000 or 400,000, over the course of that time since 1987, when you bought the property, how much money have you made off that darn thing over the course of that time? It's got to have paid for itself time and time again.
Yeah.
So,
and interest rates weren't a factor as far as buying it because that was just the interest rates then. You don't marry the interest rates.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning rates are going to come and go. I mean, let's look what happened since 87, since I got into this business. Rates have gone down, they've gone up, but for the most part, we've seen over the last number of years going down. They'll go back up, and that's okay, and they'll go back down again, too. That's going to happen. So you take advantage when the rates are reduced enough to make sense. It's not always just a little blip, but you got to make sure the numbers make sense, and you take a refinance. You lock in that lower rate at that point.
Not only do you take that refinance, if we go bring our time back to the present day, when you do that refinance, typically you're going to take cash out so you can buy more properties, and that's everybody's goal in the investment world. So
yeah, you could do that, or you could just do it for free because every time you do a loan, there's closing costs. Okay. But if you're saving enough, you just build it right into the rate. You're still reducing your rate, and you're not costing you anything.
Wow. Okay. So we're talking about a long-term hold back there in 1987. Now let's fast forward to something a little more recent that not everybody on the call may know, but most of us do. Let's go back to 2008. The world is falling apart. The financial markets are crashing. Everything's going into the toilet, and the price of homes are crashing. Back then, it was much easier to find properties because there was a huge inventory. Prices were much lower. If we look in the rearview mirror, how many people got into investment real estate at that time?
Very few. Well, it depends. The people that knew and had the cash did it. Okay. But a lot of people ran in fear that the world's falling apart. Right. It was a great time, actually.
So you go back then, and that's kind of one of those markets where the world is falling apart and everybody's saying sell, sell, sell. But the people that had the cash and the money to go and buy are really the ones that came out with huge, huge cash on cash returns. Numbers that we can't even fathom in our market that we're just coming out of. It doesn't even compare. You were able to buy a duplex in parts of Cleveland, and you were able to do it for $8,500. You could buy a duplex for $8,500, and then you're rehabbing it and doing all that. And as this market changed, again, the rents that are collected could have paid that property off 10 times over if you bought it for $8,500 over the course of even just 10 years.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but over those years from 87 to 2008, from 2008 until now, I never saw renters taking nosedives.
No.
In fact, after 2008, rent started skyrocketing because why? People couldn't buy houses because they had filed bankruptcy or lost their job or whatever else. It was harder for them to buy houses at that time, so they had to rent. So being a landlord was a phenomenal time. Yeah. So your rents keep going up. House prices will eventually keep going up, even if they take a dip.
So when we're looking at buying an investment property, then the number one thing everybody's talking about is cash on cash. Maybe the standards of what your cash on cash return has to be, or you take a different approach and you look at the appreciation, or you look at I do have some investors, they don't even care about the cash on cash. They're trying to offset their current income by owning a property that maybe takes a little bit of a loss. What if I'm buying a property that needs fixed up and I'm going to buy it and own it for a year, putting money into it and using that depreciation, that loss that I'm putting into it to offset income that I might have this year, but maybe I'm not going to have next year. There's always a great time to invest. So where everybody's looking at this strictly cash on cash, What I'm trying to do is to get everybody to look in the rearview mirror, and even in the worst of times, the absolute what we thought the world was falling apart, the chicken is saying the sky is falling, and nothing looks good. There were tons of opportunities, and people made a ton of money from those opportunities. So as we start to see a shifted market, we got to look for those opportunities for our investors and not let them get out of the arena altogether, but encourage them. Hey, now is the time where there's deals to be found. Now is the time where those of us that have been in the real estate industry and understand some little tweaks and turns that we've had in the past that we can leverage. Something as simple as days on market. Was days on market something we could utilize in the last 2, 3 years? No way, because I have a brand new investor call and they say, hey, I love this property. Let's put in a low ball offer on it. Well, you look at the days on market, it's been on the market for one day. You're not going to negotiate. You're not going to get a low ball offer. There weren't any properties that were on the market for 150 days. They just didn't exist. Now we're going to start to see that, and we're going to be able to analyze a property and say, okay, now we don't have to put in a full price offer. How long has it been sitting there? We can look at the timeline and see where the price decreases. We can see all kinds of extra data that will help us to negotiate out a deal and make it something that's going to perform down the road. Are we going to be able to come in with numbers that are half of the listing price? Maybe if they listed wrong, but we want to set good expectations and just coach people through this process. So if you're looking in the rear view mirror, the one thing that's consistent across the board, now is a good time to invest in real estate. If you go back to 1987, rates are at 15%. Now was a good time to invest. I'm sure the people living in that time didn't think so, but there were some people that did, and they held those properties and it appreciated over time. They collected rents. Their equity was going up the whole time. It's a win-win across the board, regardless of what market you're in. And we want to push that out to our investors. Don't step away from this opportunity. Step into this opportunity. Don't be the guy that sells the stock when it dies. Be the guy that sells the stock when it's at its top.
Let me say two things here real quick. It is, first off, when you're talking about cash on cash and that, if you think about it, if somebody's looking at one of our analyses on a property and it's cash flowing, not saying hard cash flowing, but it's cash flowing. Let's just say it's making as little as $500 per door per year, $300 per door per year. That's not a big cash flow, is it? Right?
No.
Now, but that cash flow is coming based on us putting in a vacancy factor, based on us estimating for costs that they're going to spend that year taking care of the property. So we're estimating these costs, and yet they're still cash flowing. So even if they bought that property, it's not a huge home run, but as you sit on it, things change. Rents change. Property appreciates. There's an old Chinese saying that if you want a shade tree, the best time to plant it is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So if you didn't buy that property 20 years ago, buy it today.
Boom! I'm going to shut the live down after that one. That was a good way to exit this. Thank you, Frank, and thank you guys all for being on the call, and we'll do this again next week.